Well, thank you, first of all, for coming to Chicago. We think it's a great place. We're glad you found the time to come and spend a little time with us today. We actually did have a study done a little while ago on carbon footprints of visiting different cities, and Chicago is one of the best because of all the nice direct flights and things. So you can feel a little good about the Chicago choice. Personally, I'm biased, but data always helps. And when you landed, if you hadn't landed at O'Hare, if you landed at Midway, Chicago is one of the few cities that has both big airports on the train lines. So again, lots of sustainable choices that are good on the climate standpoint. So I am going to spare you PowerPoint slides. I know you had a great PowerPoint right before me, and I have one in my bag, but I'm not going to use it. And this is a really great opportunity to have a conversation. And I sit in the mayor's office, and I'm in a role that the mayor created, a chief sustainability officer. So I've been in this role for about 3 years. I came in when the mayor came in. And the mayor was actually just in this building. He was doing remarks at another event, literally probably 45 minutes ago. So sustainability and climate are really embedded in everything that we do in Chicago. And it's literally part of how we think about making our city more livable. It's how we think about making our economy more competitive. It is because we're becoming increasingly sustainable. And that sustainability vision has climate right in the center of it. So Chicago actually created a climate action plan in 2008, which predates me. So I have the wonderful opportunity to say there's a great plan out there, and it's not bragging. I was a resident like everybody else who lived in Chicago. And at the time, I happened to be making a film on solutions to climate change. So I started a film called Carbon Nation on solutions to climate change. Didn't really know what the city of Chicago was doing. I started it right before kind of 2007-ish. When we finished, we did a huge premiere in Chicago in Millennium Park, which is the largest green roof in America. By the time we finished, Chicago had a plan, and they were actually delivering some of the actions. So this is a part of the heritage of Chicago. We think about climate and we think about sustainability, and we think addressing them have great benefits for us near term and great benefits long term. So I know you've had some of the grounding in climate. A couple factoids for Chicago. 71% of the emissions coming out of Chicago come from buildings, heating, cooling, operating buildings. It's about 500,000 buildings or so. And the cost to heat, cool, and operate those buildings is about $3 billion a year. So when we think about economic and environmental opportunities, the mitigation side has a lot to offer us. The next big source of emissions for us is transportation. That's about 23% that comes out of the city of Chicago. And so it's been interesting as we think about this livability and competitiveness question. About a year or so ago, Citi and The Economist did a report on the most globally competitive cities in the year 2025. And Chicago was rising in the rankings in the top 10, one of 2 cities in the top 10 for their global rankings. But what's interesting in a sense is they looked at 8 factors in ranking cities. And one of the 8 was environmental governance and environmental risk. So in a global competitiveness study, this stood out. Chicago ranked #1 in the US on that metric. So it's, again, this is a core to how we think about the city and our long-term vision. So I want to walk you through a little bit of how we think of the different opportunity areas for us and what we need to go do and what we are doing. So a couple of those opportunity areas. The big one when you think about the starting point of climate is engaging people and having it be a part of our vision. So it is a part of the Climate Action Plan from 2008. When the mayor and the team came in 2011, we built a near-term action agenda. It's a 3-year plan on sustainability. And it has 7 areas of focus, 24 goals, because it is in fact 24/7 for us. And climate change is one of those 7 near-term themes in building this livable, competitive, sustainable city. So it's embedded long-term plans and near-term in how we think about it. And so if we take that backdrop then about the sources of our emissions and how we think about that, there is great opportunity today in driving after that factor. And one of the things we did is we took that fact base, the 71% and the $3 billion, and looked for direct ways to have impact now. And some of the ways we've done that are, we created a program called Retrofit Chicago, and it's about accelerating energy efficiency across different kinds of buildings. So one piece of it is city buildings. So we are now retrofitting 5 million square feet of city buildings. And we did it through a new financing model, through a new entity, so all of it's new. That's a big piece for city buildings. We've got another piece of it, same program, Retrofit Chicago, all branded the same, but another piece for private buildings. And that focuses on a voluntary commitment to reduce energy use by 20% in 5 years. So we launched this 2 years ago, And we had 14 buildings and 14 million square feet, which was a really big launch for us. We were amazed. And the next year it doubled in 2013. In 2014, it grew again. We're now at 37 million square feet from 48 buildings. What's also been interesting as you think about this is how many different kinds of buildings we're engaging in that mitigation story. It's commercial office. We added a lot of hotels in 2013. And then this year, 10 universities came in. So aligning the research agenda with the practical facilities agenda and making it student-facing. We also have the two largest tourist attractions in Chicago involved, the Shedd Aquarium and Navy Pier. So increasingly, this is a part of a lot of people's experience when they come to Chicago. And it's thinking about what can we do to reduce that footprint. It is core as we think about getting started in this climate space, to take that mitigation step, to take those actions, and to drive benefit locally. The buildings that joined Retrofit Chicago on the big commercial side, they've already saved $2.5 million in energy costs. And by the way, energy costs are low in Chicago compared to the coasts. So that's a huge number for them to have hit. Now we want to make it easy for that kind of thing. So we will turn around a permit in 5 days for any building that needs help becoming more efficient, if they're in this program. We have worked with partners and have had full-page ads in the Trib and the Sun-Times with pictures of all of the buildings as they've joined. We want to celebrate that leadership. We want to make it easier. So that's an example of really going after what we know is a huge environmental opportunity directly about carbon and directly about emissions, but also is a great economic opportunity, and trying to make it easier. We're trying to move this faster now. We also have a piece that looks at residential neighborhoods. So we have the data literally on a per census block level of energy efficiency. It's energy use intensity per square foot. We've got it mapped for the whole city. And first of all, we put the data out on the data portal because we want to get more people engaged in what they can do and understanding their footprint and where they live. We also had an interactive map made so you can visually go in and it'll show you in 3D energy use around the city. So there's a way for a resident to very quickly see how their neighborhood or their census block is doing. But we also want to make it easy for action. So there's now a one-stop shop for a resident who's interested in retrofitting their home, making it cleaner, making it more comfortable. So they call one phone number. We've aligned all the programming, so you just call 8559-IMPACT, and it will take you to all the programming. So that big energy efficiency piece, we are working on really aggressively. We also want to make information transparent. I mean, a lot of this is about how do more people get engaged in what they can do now. And we're the first city that now the MLS listings for transactions for residential homes, they can put in the energy cost per last 12 months. So I can go in listings. It's in increasing numbers, and it's not in all of them yet. We just rolled this out. But you can actually just compare. What does it actually cost to heat and operate this building as I'm thinking of what home I want to buy? That's now in the market here in Chicago. We also have a benchmarking ordinance that passed almost exactly a year ago, and the first compliance date was in June, where all commercial, municipal, and residential buildings 50,000 square feet or greater benchmark, verify, and ultimately disclose their energy use. It's about information driving action. So in addition to programmatic support, there's a lot of transparency that we're trying to bring into this space, knowing that that energy story is a big one. Some of the backdrop then is switching the power sources. So when the mayor came into office, Chicago had 2 working coal-fired power plants in 2 of its neighborhoods, the last 2 in urban areas. And those have since closed. Now, there was a huge amount of community engagement. There was a lot of engagement from multiple spaces, from the mayor, from the community. Natural gas prices helped here too, but they've closed. That's a huge carbon win. They were the largest stationary sources in the city. It's also a massive health win when you think about our neighborhoods and what was in the air nearby. We've built on that. We've recently procured the city's power. We buy it all coal-free now. Chicago is the largest city with community choice aggregation, where the residents voted for us as the city to be able to negotiate their power price and mix for their electricity. We did that coal-free too. So there's a big transition of using less and increasingly using green, all the way through to we have worked on making solar easier in the city of Chicago. So we, through a federal grant, Sunshot Grant, we were able to redo our permitting process. So now if you're a resident, permitting used to be 30 days plus, we'll give you a permit in a day. We also reduced the permit fee. So a standard pitched roof in Chicago is a very easy process now. Permitting is online, the guidelines are online, zoning is online. We even have an online interconnection process we worked out with our local utility. All of this is to try to make it easier to go from those big picture ideas to action. And those actions have multiple benefits, as you know, from the carbon emission side to the comfort of your home, to the security of your energy source. great, great areas to think about. The next big source then is transportation. And you're in a transportation city. So Chicago has a great CTA line, which is our core line. We rebuilt the south side. That's what serves a lot of Chicago. It's now faster and easier for people to take sustainable transportation. We also then launched the first new transportation system in 50 years, Divvy. It's our bike share program. 3,000 bikes parked in 300 solar powered stations all around the city of Chicago. And ridership has been wild. So it's great for health. It's great for emissions. It's actually cheaper than most other sources of transportation. So we have pushed really, really hard on that side, on the mitigation and the reduction side. A lot of the question is, well, what about the adaptation? What do you do to prepare? And I know you've had a lot of prep today on what it means around the country. In Chicago, our impacts are more high heat days. Our impacts are more high intense storms. Lake Michigan is not going up. We do not have the sea level rise challenges of other places. So we also have a pretty secure water supply. We get all of our water right out of Lake Michigan. So heat is a real challenge in Chicago. In 1995, there was a heat wave that we still talk about and think about, and hundreds of people died in that heat wave. And we have continued to build approaches with that in mind, and we know that there are more days like that could come. It was a series of very hot days back to back. We also know that connectivity of the residents had some impact on mortality as we look at some of the analysis of the different neighborhoods. So we now have in the code very strict white roof requirements. So we want those roofs to reflect heat up. We do not want the tops of our buildings to be hot. We know many of our residents don't have access to air conditioning. So we have cooling centers around the city that we open on these very hot days. We also have lists of vulnerable residents and outreach campaigns and outreach efforts to go to residents who may have a tougher time and ensure that they have got access and information. We also then build in looking at infrastructure like trees. Where is the urban heat island most strong, and can we think about tree plantings in those areas? So looking very much at what that heat story looks like for us and thinking about what it can be. And partnerships are critical in all of this, with local social service agencies, also with research, so we know where the urban heat island is strongest. For example, we've done great partnerships with universities there. That's going to be a continuing opportunity for us as we think about light-colored surfaces, as we think about shade, as we think about access to cool, knowing that some of those hot days are likely to come. Another big challenge for us then is on the stormwater side. So in the last 6 years, we've had 4 10-year storm events. That math doesn't work. So we are increasingly looking at what can we do to manage stormwater. We've got a combined sewer system. So when we have rains, it mixes with the black water, et cetera. And so we are combining and looking at both gray infrastructure and green infrastructure. So the mayor made a voluntary $50 million commitment to look at installations of green infrastructure around the city. So how can we take that water, use plants and other natural options, or use permeability to keep it out of the storm system? 4 of the cases that we're doing, we announced a series of projects that we're funding with this initial money. We'll spend this money over 5 years. We're looking at school campuses. So CPS, our public schools. Some of those campuses are very, very impervious. So we are working with stormwater money in partnership with our local sewage district, in partnership with the schools, in partnership with nonprofits, to transform those spaces so that they are green, so they can handle the stormwater, so that you have more beautiful places for kids to play outside. And so as we think about these big opportunities around Chicago, we know that we're looking at infrastructure for where are we vulnerable to heat and where are we vulnerable to water. We were mapping the CTA to find those places. We know that it's going to hit your home, and we know that vulnerable residents have more at risk. So we're building the policies, programs, and infrastructure to engage folks, to change the probabilities, but really to ensure that tomorrow and the decades from now, Chicago is still a livable, competitive, sustainable city. And so it's great partnerships that have helped us move so far so fast, and it's going to be great partnerships that are going to keep us moving forward. So looking forward to the dialogue today and hearing from the other panelists. Thanks.